Today I'll be showing you how to get the most value out of Summoner. Summoner has some of the best AoE pressure and control, acting as heavy artillery to constantly bombard the enemy team and supporting their own with great utility. We'll go over each ability in the spellbook, followed by combo sequences and tips. Ruin 3 is your spammable basic damage spell, dealing 4k potency at 25 yards after a 1.4 second cast. This will become more important during your LB summoning windows, more on that later. Crimson Cyclone is your bread and butter damage option. Having a 15-second cooldown, this OGCD spell charges up to 25 yards to a target and deals 8k potency to it and all enemies within 5 yards, then transforming into Crimson Strike for the next 15 seconds. Crimson Strike deals 12k potency to a target and all nearby enemies within 5 yards from up to 25 yards away, dealing a 5-yard AoE knockback from the original target's position. Slipstream is your team setup, dealing 8k potency to a target and nearby enemies within 10 yards after a 1.9 second cast from up to 25 yards away with a 30-second cooldown. An area effect is then created on the ground centered around the target, dealing 4k potency to enemies who enter every 2 seconds for 10 seconds total and granting allies who enter a burst of movement speed. Radiant Aegis is your defensive and team utility, placing a 10k potency shield on the target and reducing all damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds. This is also an OGCD ability, so it can be weaved between other GCDs for yourself or allies in danger, a very versatile tool. Mountain Buster is your crowd control and other setup option, an instant cast OGCD that deals 4k potency to a target and all enemies within 5 yards from up to 25 yards away, afflicting the primary target with a bind and all others with a 75% slow for 3 seconds, additionally pulling and drawing in all other targets to the primary target's location. And finally, Fester is your on-demand OGCD damage, instantly dealing up to 8k potency from 25 yards to a target as their HP decreases, reaching max value at or below 50% HP with a minimum of 4k potency otherwise. With 2 charges on a 15-second cooldown, this will be your execute option to help secure kills. Now let's talk about your LB, the offensive Bahamut and defensive Phoenix. Both can be cast from up to 30 yards, span a 15-yard area of effect, and last 20 seconds. Bahamut when summoned will execute Mega Flare, dealing 18k potency to all enemies caught within the summon zone, and will then periodically cast Wormwave at enemies in the area for the duration, dealing 6k potency and prioritizing targets with the lowest health. Your LB button will be transformed into Enkindle Bahamut, allowing one cast of Akmorn, which deals 12k potency to a target and all nearby enemies within 5 yards. And your Ruin 3 will be transformed into Astral Impulse for the summon duration, a 6k potency spell on a 1.4 second cast. The Phoenix when summoned will cast Everlasting Flight, healing allies in the area for 4k potency every 3 seconds for 15 seconds. Additionally, when the duration ends or you fall below 25% HP, this ability will automatically and instantly heal you for 12k potency. While summoned, the Phoenix will attack enemies with Scarlet Flame, a 4k potency attack that reduces the target's damage dealt by 50% for 5 seconds, prioritizing closest enemies. And finally, your LB will be transformed into Enkindle Phoenix, allowing a cast of Revelation, which deals 6k damage to a target and nearby enemies within 5 yards, placing a ticking debuff on them for 15 seconds that deals 3k potency every 3 seconds. Additionally, your Ruin 3 will be transformed into Fountain of Fire for the summon duration, an instant cast attack that deals 4k potency on a 2.4 second recast timer with a 25-yard range. Now for the sequences. The main combo idea starts off with a GCD cast of Slipstream, placing the area effect while weaving Mountain Buster immediately afterwards to pull in targets and lock them down, followed by Crimson Strike to hit all targets and then covering yourself with Divine Aegis. Fester is then used as a double weave before dropping Crimson Cyclone and weaving the last Fester afterwards for the biggest chunk of damage. This places Fester in the combo to deal the most damage and sets up your other abilities to get value throughout the sequence. The max value combo using LB places Bahamut just after Slipstream and before Mountain Buster as a double weave, then slipping Enkindle Bahamut for Akmorn just before your last Fester to buffer damage even further. Following this is 4 casts of Astral Impulse alongside your Bahamut's Wormwaves while waiting for cooldowns, using Mountain Buster just as it comes up, followed by both Crimson Strike and Cyclone, finally finishing with a max Fester. Now with that all done, here are some last tips. Crimson Strike's activation window will last the entire duration of Crimson Cyclone's 15-second cooldown, so you're free to hold it for when exactly you need it without the worry of losing the cast. And although Crimson Cyclone charges you into melee range, Crimson Strike has a 25-yard range on the ability, enabling you to dip out of the fray or reposition the cast for high AoE value. Remember that Radiant Aegis can be very useful when paired with Crimson Strike, giving you a buffer shield as you're diving into the fray and can easily be weaved immediately after your strike cast as an OGCD. The ticking dot damage associated with the Slipstream's ground effect is actually a 5-second debuff placed on targets who enter that is rapidly refreshed while within the zone. Keep this in mind when deciding where to place the ability and when facing an enemy summoner. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a click. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Y'all take it easy.